Listener-supported St. Gabriel Catholic Radio AM 820 brings you Family Sanctuary, a show that inspires living the gospel message in word and deed within our families. And now, Family Sanctuary with host Peggy Hartshorn.
Welcome to the Family Sanctuary, focusing on life-giving relationships and the family. I'm your host, Peggy Hartshorn, chairman of Heartbeat International, that advances life-affirming pregnancy help around the world. It's interesting because of our topic today. I just realized our focus of Heartbeat on advancing life-affirming pregnancy help. Actually, we have a couple of programs that will be in our archives with our guest today, Kimberly Henkel, who really gives us a beautiful example of a life-affirming pregnancy help in many respects. In her story of infertility, but also hope and healing. So we're focusing on those issues today, the issues of infertility, but not only infertility, that can really create suffering within the family, grieving and suffering. We're going to be talking a little bit not only about infertility, but other kinds of grieving and experiences that really need healing within our families. For instance, we're going to be looking a little bit also at child loss, families experiencing child loss, the loss of children at any age, whether that may be in miscarriage or stillbirth, the loss of a child or an adolescent or even an adult child. The families that are suffering, sometimes young people and young adults suffering because of divorce or separation in their birth family. Issues of young adults who are struggling with infertility, families that are struggling with infertility, and looking at perhaps adoption or fostering, all those kinds of emotions. What about those who are perhaps considering bringing children into the family in another way? What are the emotions and what kind of supports? This is the exciting thing, that within our church today, there are some exciting new ministries that are being developed. We're going to be talking a little bit specifically about the two that Kimberly is most associated with, Springs in the Desert and Springs of Love, but also others. So I think you'll be really blessed by our program today. So welcome, Kimberly. It's good to have you again on our program.
Yes, thank you. I'm very excited about sharing all the great works that the Holy Spirit is doing right now.
Absolutely. And, Kimberly, you shared with me that there's such a need for these kinds of programs in our church today, programs that deal with the ordinary. I hate to say they're ordinary now, but they are. People suffering from divorce, people suffering from infertility, child loss. It's so common, isn't it, in our church today? And yet, share with us some of the statistics that you are familiar with about how this is affecting people in our church who aren't finding yet the hope and healing that they need.
Right. Well, there was a Pew Research study that was talking about, they had interviewed Catholics, former Catholics, who said the reasons why they left the church. And, some had just gradually drifted. 65% stopped believing in the church's teachings, and 43% left because their spiritual needs were not being met. 43%. Mm-hmm. And what we have found is that there are so many people leaving as a result of their suffering not being addressed, not being able to make sense of their suffering, them not feeling like the church can help them make sense of their suffering, mm-hmm. and they just either think God has abandoned them, mm-hmm. or they can't understand why God would take their child, mm-hmm. why God would not allow somebody to get pregnant, mm-hmm. why God would allow their parents to divorce and leave them with this brokenness at the origin of their story. There's so much suffering, and if we don't, as a church, help come alongside and accompany people and help them find God in the midst of that suffering, mm-hmm. people are leaving.
Yeah, that's a shocking realization. Actually, we wonder why church attendance has decreased by 50%, in the last few years. I didn't properly introduce our guest today, Kimberly, before we get into more of this this need that we have in the church today, and how the Holy Spirit is lifting up people to help with that need. Our guest, Dr. Kimberly Henkel, is the co-founder of Springs in the Desert and Springs of Love. Springs in the Desert is dedicated to spiritually and emotionally accompanying those struggling with infertility and loss. And Springs in the Desert is focused on Springs of Love is focused on helping those who are discerning and considering foster care and adoption. So Kimberly brings not only her own personal experience of suffering through infertility, of experiencing intensely those kinds of feelings that go along with that, as well as the need for accompaniment, which also she could not find originally. Who can help me with this? Who also is experiencing this? Who can I process this with? And finally, what can I think about in terms of the doors God may be opening now for healing? Perhaps foster and adoption. What about that? So her testimony, which is in another program in our archives called From Infertility to a New Fruitfulness, is a beautiful example of your story, Kimberly. But Kimberly brings to help other couples in our church today. She brings a wonderful academic background also of understanding the church's teachings. She holds a PhD in moral theology and ethics with a focus on bioethics from Catholic University of America, and also a master's degree in theology from the John Paul II Institute. So God has really created a beautiful package here, Kimberly. Allowing you
tapestry
to experience so intensely some of these very important issues that couples are facing in our church today. And until very recently, they have not had many avenues for healing. So let's talk about, we mentioned Springs in the Desert and Springs of Love. Recently, Kimberly, you were part of a conference that was sponsored by the National Association of Families National Association of Family and Life Ministries, which was in San Antonio. Apparently, this is a group of family and life ministries representing dioceses and churches, all over the country. And your ministries and these ministries of healing that we've been talking about are still very much in infancy in our diocesan programs. There weren't, aside from the ministries we're going to be talking about today, they were not very well represented. Is that correct?
Well, I have to just say that OSV, our Sunday Visitor, they have this new Catholic Innovation Challenge that they've been doing each year, and hundreds of ministries apply, and they select the top 12 most innovative Catholic ministries.
Wow.
And then they, last year they awarded three grand prizes. So the ministries that I'm about to talk to you today about, Redbird Ministries, that they help couples who are suffering the intense grief of losing a child,
mm-hmm.
And Life-Giving Wounds. They really help minister to those adults whose parents divorced,
mm-hmm.
and that, leaves a scar and makes their marriages very difficult as well, often.
Mm-hmm.
So those, and our ministry, Springs in the Desert, the three of those ministries were in the top 12 finalists last year with the OSV competition. So now and Redbird Ministries actually won one of the grand prizes. Very well deserving of that. But it's really exciting to see all of the innovative evangelization efforts that are emerging right now. And they're emerging so much out of the suffering that people are going through. And, looking to make sense of that suffering, finding God in the midst of that suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And then for so many of us, part of our healing is by helping another person going through that. So once we have been able to feel, wow, this community that we are building at Springs in the Desert, for instance, it's just such a a balm to the soul to hear other women and men talking about how they feel so isolated, how they feel like nobody understands their suffering, how they feel, they sometimes like they don't even want to go to mass. There's all the children, and particularly like women tell us all the time, they don't want to go to mass on Mother's Day, where, the priest asks the mothers to stand.
Sure.
And that can be like a knife to the heart of a woman struggling with infertility. So this is some of the things that we do with Springs in the Desert, for instance, is we provide the community and support and retreats and things like that, podcasts for those who are struggling. But we also have a big outreach to priests and to church leaders to kind of help tell them best strategies for really accompanying those who are struggling with infertility.
Sure.
And just one little side note with the Mother's Day thing, what we did in our parish this past year, which was really beautiful, is that the priest waited until the end of Mass when everybody was standing. At that point, he said, we would like to just honor all the mothers and think of all of our own mothers, our biological mothers, our spiritual mothers, our adoptive mothers, and just really opening that up. And it was so beautiful. So many of the women came up to me afterwards and were like, that was beautiful. It felt very honoring, and there was nobody left sitting in the pews grieving.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So yes, it's a great point you're making, Kimberly, obviously, that these ministries that are emerging, that the Holy Spirit is raising up. And I had no idea about this competition from our Sunday visitor. What a great, what a great way to encourage new ministries. But that it's more than even ministering individually to the couples and the families.
Right.
It's helping it's giving new insights and to our priests, to our pastors, and to those in the parishes, like the family and life directors, who are dealing with these kinds of suffering, dealing with this kind of suffering that parishioners are experiencing. And I'm sure many times, up to this point, feeling kind of helpless. Gosh, what more can I do to help this couple?
Right.
Or am I doing something like a priest might think? Am I doing something? Am I saying something insensitive? Is the blessing of the mothers? Probably that would be a shock to many priests to think that the blessing of mothers might be somehow contributing to the sufferings of those who are infertile. Is there another way of doing this?
Right. No, that's so
just
true.
kind of eye-opening experiences. The other thing that I think is, and you and I have talked about this a little bit, Kimberly, is the innovative way that these ministries are becoming available to people. We're almost halfway through our program. I want to reintroduce our guest, and then we'll talk about some of the innovative ways that programs like Springs in the Desert and Springs of Love are becoming available to people, because you can't be everywhere in person to everyone, right? So our guest today is Dr. Kimberly Henkel. She's the co-founder of the ministry Springs in the Desert, which is dedicated to spiritually and emotionally accompanying those struggling with infertility and loss, and also a Springs of Love now, a newer organization, or ministry, I should say, that is available to those who are discerning perhaps foster care or adoption. But we're also talking about today other ministries that are emerging that will use these similarly creative ways of reaching people, like Redbird, which is a ministry focusing on bereaved families who have experienced child loss at any time in the age of that child, from miscarriage on to adult child, or a group called livingwounds.org. lifegivingwounds.org, which is directed to young adults and adults who are divorced and separated.
Whose parents.
Their parents have divorced or separated. So they're now facing that loss and perhaps even affecting their own marriage or decision to marry. So there are many emerging groups. And one of the things we talked about, Kimberly, is the innovative way that you are making these ministries available. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yes. So at that conference last week, I had the great privilege of being able to present with Redbird Ministries and Life Giving Wounds. And we were talking about like really the pastoral urgency, you know, the numbers of people leaving the church and how we need to be able to accompany people. But of course, every diocese and parish is just spread thin. They're spread so thin. And then trying to come up with a program like, okay, I need to do something for infertility. I don't even know where to begin. I mean, really, you know, it's
for our diocesan staff,
absolutely,
yes, who are so overwhelmed.
Absolutely. So,
and even parish priests who are so overwhelmed.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so then, you know, really, you know, the idea that these ministries kind of developed out of our grief and suffering, and our path of fruitfulness themselves. So one of the most important things that we see is really that peer-to-peer accompaniment. You know, just being really vulnerable with our suffering, that authenticity. Our ministries are all very much in trying to raise up leaders in communities who can then go on and continue that work and of accompaniment. Mm-hmm. You know, we want to bring hope and fruitfulness and you know, so often, you know, something like an infertility group could really devolve into just, you know, talking about, oh, I got my cycle again this month, and I've got this test coming up, and you know, it can become very women have told us this, you know, who've been a part of these different groups, and so we really wanted to create, you know, a whole program that takes into account the grief, that helps couples, women and couples, to really come to terms with their grief, understand their grief, process it, and then be able to move beyond it. To find that fruitfulness that God is calling them to. So we have a very particular focus and a way that we sort of help our community move beyond that, so that they're not like stuck in that grief. And it's similar with Redbird and Life Giving Wounds. They do these beautiful retreats where they enable people to really just, you know, the leaders are all ones who have suffered in this way. So they're sharing their own experiences. And that's what, you know, really touches somebody's heart is that, okay, you really understand this. Like you know, Kelly, the founder of Redbird Ministries, like she's lost, you know, 2 children, and then she had 2 miscarriages as well. So when she's talking about her suffering, I mean, people are like, okay, this woman gets it. Like she knows where I've been. And so that is so critical for these ministries that are really dealing with grief.
Right.
Another area that we find is really important is collaboration. So really working together with ministries. You know, we are trying to work together with dioceses, parishes, you know, other ministries, working together. Like we're finding, you know, it's interesting because, you know, all of our ministries, these 3 ministries, we all deal with grief. And so we can collaborate and sort of talk about, you know, healing, you know, ways of being able to really help people move through that grief.
So these kinds of innovative ministries, particularly the ones dealing with grief in the family, and then opportunities for healing, the doors. So you're saying you're collaborating with each other, these innovative ministries, as well as with parishes and dioceses.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we put on a Hope and Healing retreat here in Columbus recently with Springs in the Desert. And that was like a joint effort. It was wonderful to have, you know, they were helping to put it on, put the event on, and, you know, Springs in the Desert, we were the speakers, and we, you know, it was our, you know, it was
your stories,
our stories,
like you say.
Absolutely. And it's just so encouraging. It's so encouraging. I mean, one of the main things that people say when they go to our retreats is, wow, I feel heard. I feel like I'm not so isolated. I feel like God actually does love me, and he does have a plan for fruitfulness for my life, and that he's with me, and he's helping me carry my cross. And like, that's the best testimony we can hear.
Yes.
You know?
And of course, for people, maybe people listening in parishes, listening to the program, who maybe a couple experiencing what you're sharing in infertility, or have experienced a loss of a child and are thinking, or even thinking about fostering, and thinking, gosh, I wish our parish had maybe there's someone else in the parish who's suffering this, and I don't know. Is there anything we could do in our parish to bring people together? Your organization can be a resource, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can connect people. That's something that we try to do when we do retreats. We try to create small groups in that area so that people can have ongoing support.
Right.
And with the whole Springs of Love,
Which focuses on fostering and adoption.
Which is, helping Catholics to really discern and live out that call to foster and adopt. So many people think, gosh, I feel like maybe I'm called to do this, but they don't know where to start. And they feel overwhelmed. And how do I understand, my relationship and my children's relationships with their birth parents, and that seems too much. Or how do I deal with the impact of trauma on my child? How can I, even go through the legalities of like going through the adoption procedure, and just feeling like that is so overwhelming. So we are really trying to create a community of support around Catholics, so that they can talk to each other about these issues.
It's so important. And up until very recently, with the kind of innovative approaches that these ministries have, it's been very difficult to find, because our method in the past has been, okay, is there a program in print that I can bring to my parish?
Right.
Let's talk about the innovative ways, because I have a whole list that you and I have talked about of ways that you're getting this message out and providing hope and help. Even if I'm sitting in my home, how can I connect? How can I get help?
So there are, with technology, the blessing and curse, but the goal is really to create community. And we found this, the past couple of years with Zoom meetings. So we do like a virtual, with Springs in the Desert, we do a Lenten small group series, which is just so beautiful. We'll have somebody give a reflection, and then, we split up into those little Zoom rooms. I know people are zoomed out a little bit, but, at
least we know how to least we know how to use it now. We had to learn.
Right. That's right. But we have people from all over the world joining us, and that's really a surprise. People will be like, oh, it's 2:00 in the morning over here in Ireland. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're doing this at 2 a.m. But like, people are
how important it is
for
them. Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Right.
So you virtual retreats?
We do virtual retreats with Springs of Love. We've been doing, we're doing a virtual retreat about discerning adoption. Like, that is how do you discern that? So, and how do you discern that as a family if you have children at home already? And that might be a little scary. You're afraid, you don't want to like traumatize your children. How do you discern that if you've already been going through infertility and you're feeling worn out and beaten up already from infertility? And then you're like, how can I even open my heart up to have it crushed again? Right. So this is a discernment process, right? And this is, this is why we are trying to bring tools and couples who've experienced these things to, to speak to our community, so that it's so important to know you're not alone. Other people are experiencing the same, and these feelings that I have are not totally ridiculous. Right. Right.
Well, you mentioned podcasts too. You have podcasts available?
Yes. Yep. So we have been doing a podcast for Springs in the Desert. We'll be starting one with Springs of Love soon. And that's an opportunity, just, you're in the car and you can just, listen to somebody who's telling their story. And that can just be so healing. It's like having a friend with you that can just connect with you. I know for me in my healing with infertility, having girlfriends who were also going through it, and I'm pretty obviously outspoken, so I was able to find that community on my own. But so many people don't. Yeah. They don't. And so then they need something like Springs in the Desert, where they can just go and find this community. And it's just amazing the depth of sharing that goes on with these retreats and such. We are doing a lot of in-person. A lot of dioceses are bringing us to their towns to do in-person retreats, because it's always better to do in-person if you can.
You can't replace a real hug.
Right. Absolutely. So it's about community and connection. And one of the other innovative ways that we're really trying to reach people is through beauty. Because we respond to that, to beautiful things. So we try to make our websites really beautiful, our print materials. We hired a professional photographer to go out to the desert in Arizona to take
For
all these
springs in the desert.
For springs in the desert to take these gorgeous photos.
Wow.
And, because we believe so much is just communicated through beauty, and so this is something that draws people in.
And not just visual beauty. You mentioned music too, to me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. I know that Life Giving Wounds, they really talk about using all the senses in their retreats. And so they have a musician that will come and play music, live music and at the retreats, and they have had sacred art commissioned. We actually just had a beautiful icon finished yesterday for Springs in the Desert. So just these beautiful artworks.
And it's not just women that respond to this.
Absolutely, right? This is a human thing. We're all drawn to beauty, and beauty is God, right? Heaven is beauty. That's what. And so we want to lift people's hearts and souls up. We want to encourage. And so one way to reach people is through beauty. We find that really important.
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a former literature teacher, I found that with my students, I find poetry and literature beautiful, great poetry and literature, and being able to help people experience that for the first time. It is transformative.
Yes.
So I think that's wonderful. Well, it's just amazing. Let's we don't have too much time left, but let's mention the websites of the groups that you've talked about.
So we have redbird.love, springsinthedesert.org, springsoflove.org, and lifegivingwounds.org.
Wonderful. Well, our guest today, thank you so much, Dr. Kimberly Henkel, for being with us as the founder of Springs in the Desert and Springs of Love, and part of this wonderful network of innovative ministries relating to whose call is wounds in the family. And how do we help them heal? How do we get God's healing grace into those situations to bring fruitfulness again? It's just a beautiful message. So thank you so much, Dr. Kimberly. And we do have 2 programs in our archives that people will really be blessed by. So you have been listening to The Family Sanctuary. I'm your host, Peggy Hartshorn, and you're listening to it on St. Gabriel Catholic Radio with archives at stgabrielradio.com under The Family Sanctuary. We're streaming live on stgabriel.com and stgabrielradio.com, and we're broadcast at 4 o'clock every Saturday and 2 o'clock on Sundays. So please join us again to strengthen our families and make them sanctuaries of life as God intends.